Welcome to the DeFi Standard, and this is Mickey B. Fresh. And today was a big day on Capitol Hill, a catalyst for change at the SEC. Gary Gensler, confirmation hearing in front of the Senate committee today was very interesting, and I pulled out about 4 or 5 different clips from the 2-hour-long hearing that also involved the nominee for the Consumer Protections Bureau, and then Gary Gensler as the nominee for the Securities and Exchange Commission. Now, before I play these clips, I just want it to be known that everyone understands this guy right here, Gary Gensler, was an MIT professor of blockchain and crypto at MIT for the last 3 to 4 years. And he went in front of Congress multiple times telling them how cryptocurrency and blockchain is a catalyst for change. Now, he doesn't say anything outrageous in any of these clips. And he says, I'm not a maximalist and I'm not a minimalist. But one thing that's the most important here is that he understands the technology and he understands that change is coming and that innovation needs to be let go and be fostered. Because that's not what has been going on at the SEC. And you could hear in some of these clips from some of the senators saying that the SEC has actually been asleep at the wheel and actually has been falling down, even though Congress has given them the tools to foster innovation. They are not doing that. So we're going to go over here to the first video.
2018, you said in front of the House Agriculture Committee that blockchain technology has real potential to transform the world of finance. Could you talk more about how this technology can promote financial inclusion and reduce risk and create new markets?
Well, I think it's already doing some of that right now, that it's been a catalyst for change. Central banks around the globe are really looking at how to provide more inclusive payment structures, more inclusive payment tokens. And so that's in one area as a catalyst for change, but it's also other payment system providers are looking to say, how do we provide payment systems that operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and at lower cost, both cross-border and domestically. Blockchain technology itself is a shared accounting system, if I might say. And I think that's also led to some new thoughts about how to do trade finance and even medical records technology and the like. So I teach it. I'm neither a maximalist nor a minimalist, but I think that it's really been a catalyst for change in numerous areas.
So there it is. You heard it right from him. He's telling you that this is a catalyst for change, but he's staying neutral as he has to appeal to the incumbents, and you also have to appeal to the innovators. And the previous SEC did not appeal to the innovators, and you had the likes of Jay Clayton, which was coming out attacking and crushing the crypto market. And I think we're going to see a big difference with Gensler fostering the innovation. I don't think he's going to be super crypto friendly where he comes out there and promotes crypto, but I think he will take a neutral stance and he will let it innovate in the way that it should. So let's listen to another clip from him here.
Confirmed. I look forward to looking at all of the authorities, not just this one, but all the authorities to help protect investors, promote the capital formation and the efficient markets that we talked about. And this is an important authority that was vested in the agency and looking at the economic analysis, working with fellow commissioners. I think we should look at all the authorities.
Well, I appreciate that. You know, Congress has given the tools to the SEC. We just need the SEC to pick up these tools and use them. The SEC has been asleep on the job for long enough. It's time for the commission to get up off its behind and protect investors and consumers. And I expect to see progress on all of these areas under your leadership. So thank you for being here and thank you for your willingness to serve.
Well, where is the SEC protecting investors of XRP in December when Jay Clayton and the old administration at the SEC filed a lawsuit against Ripple that lost tens of billions of dollars. And that might not have been directly said about Ripple right there, that senator who said that, but it definitely does apply to XRP owners, where the SEC is supposed to be there to protect the retail investor and consumers. And they did the exact opposite. And now this comes up over and over again in the testimony. And we're going to go over to another one that actually asks specifically about digital assets.
My question to you, Mr. Gensler, and it's an open-ended one. If you could share your perspective on the SEC's role under your leadership, if you're confirmed, and how you will approach digital assets.
Senator, I thank you for that opening. I share your thoughts. It's always important to update our market oversight to new technologies, but I believe foremost to be technology neutral. And I say this because if this new technology of cryptocurrency and potentially central bank digital currencies comes along, that it's important to stay true to our principles of investor protection and capital formation, but at the same time be technology neutral. So I think that at the SEC, it's really to the extent that somebody is offering an investment contract or a security that's under the SEC's remit, and they have exchanges that operate there, then we have to make sure there's investor protection. If it's not that, and it's a commodity, as Bitcoin has been deemed to be, then it's either a question for Congress, how Congress would want that to be overseen, or it's possibly a question for the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. But I would work with the staff, I'd work with fellow commissioners and see how we can move forward, and to the extent investors can be protected and invest in these markets, that they're allowed to do so, but to do so in, again, the core function of investor protection and capital formation.
I appreciate your cognizance of your jurisdiction and also, and importantly, the role of the Congress in overseeing this and dealing with it. This is an area where I think we have great potential for leadership if handled right, and I think we should be very careful not to have too heavy a hand, but bringing your experience and your expertise to bear, I think you can make a significant mark in this rapidly evolving market, and I want to make certain that we take the right touch and the right coordinated approach between our legislative oversight and the role that you'll play, if you're confirmed, running this important independent agency. Thank you.
Now, that was probably the most interesting exchange of the entire hearing, in my opinion. And now there's a lot to unpack right there. And at first glance, you might think that that sounded negative, where he described an investment contract and potential securities. But we all know that as of right now, there is no doubt that XRP is not a security. And Gary Gensler, who's a professor at MIT, is going to also see that XRP is clearly not a security right now. And what else is brought up in this discussion right here is the fact that ultimately it comes down to Congress to set the laws and the legislation. So the fact that this senator is saying he wants to work with Gary Gensler at the SEC to come with a common framework that then the SEC can follow. But Congress has not acted in the last 11 years since Bitcoin was in existence. And SEC just came out publicly and said Bitcoin is a commodity. But if you hear how Gary Gensler says everything else then would be a commodity, would be pushed on to the CFTC. So it's really hard how they're going to really place digital assets like XRP. Is it a commodity? Is it a currency? Well, it really needs its own classification. And this is where Congress needs to pass legislation. But in the meantime, until that happens, I could see Gensler at least stating and amending the case or settling with Ripple that XRP is not a security. So at least it's clear to trade and be used until Congress actually gets their act together then and passes a regulatory framework. But there was multiple times in this hearing that they brought up digital assets, they brought up blockchain. And here's another one that was brought up that was interesting. Where is it? This one right here.
As you know, the SEC's job is to protect investors, maintain fair, orderly, and efficient markets, and facilitate capital formation. But it is falling down on the job. And welcome, Mr. Gensler.
Now, what I found interesting about that exchange was how she said, as you know, the SEC has fallen down on the job. So many of these senators have had private conversations with Gary Gensler over the last few weeks, and they've discussed with them the things that they're talking about here, but also things in private. And I'm pretty sure that at least one or two of these senators have brought up the Ripple case, because it's the highest profile case at the SEC right now. And congressmen like Thomas Emmer, Warren Davidson, Darren Soto are probably asking Gary Gensler, well, what are you going to do about this? And Ripple seems to have their claws into this administration. So Gensler is going to be familiar with this case once he comes on. And he's definitely favorable for digital assets because he understands digital assets. And I think that's really the most important thing to take away from this. And here's one final clip about consumer protections.
What are some of the ways we can work together to ensure consumer protection for digital assets that doesn't also hamper innovators?
Senator, I was aware, I think that your legislature and governor enacted 13 separate acts in the digital space in Wyoming. I think it's important to protect consumers and investors. One area of consumer protection is around the custody of their funds, digital assets. The actual ownership relies on something called a private key in cryptography, and ensuring that that's really that custody works. And I know Wyoming has looked at that, New York, some other states. I believe actually South Dakota may have as well. I hope I didn't leave out any of the member states. But I think also investor protection, which goes beyond just the custody of assets, but to ensure that these markets are free of fraud and manipulation. And I think that's the greater challenge, frankly, because there has been the markets for some markets usually operating overseas, but some markets have been really rife with fraud and scam. So trying to protect the investors against that fraud and manipulation.
What about protecting the investors against the SEC themselves and damaging tens of billions of dollars? So I'm sure that Gensler sees this, and there are scams out there, and it is rife with fraud, and that has to be reined in. Another note here to bring up, he mentions custody. So that is, once this case is cleared up with Ripple and XRP's cleared of being a security, the SEC does have authority over the custody rule for digital assets. Even though Brian Brooks at the OCC last year gave guidance and the green light for banks to custody crypto, the SEC still oversees the custody rule. And under the previous administration with Jay Clayton, they made it very difficult for the banks to decipher how they could actually custody these digital assets. And I think with Gary Gensler, we're going to see more of an open approach, and they're going to use their FinTech innovation lab to promote innovation instead of try to crush it like Clayton and the old administration did. Now, Hester Peirce has also been very vocal, and I'm going to put this in the description below. This is a speech that she just made on March 1st, talking about digital assets and the challenges of legacy institutions trying to keep innovation out of the actual markets. And I'm not going to go through this right now. It's really long, and you could read it. I'm going to put it in the description below. And it really does show how she's continuing to just push forward with the same stance that she's had over and over again for the last 2 or 3 years, and she's getting her word out there that the SEC is not doing their job and they're not following their mandate. And she has high hopes when Gensler comes in. Even though they're on opposing parties, hopefully this won't be a party line decision with some of these things. It looks like they're going to work together with the fact that Gensler is on the Democratic side, Peirce is a Republican. Hopefully they both will foster the innovation here. I'm Mickey B. Fresh, and I'm out.